hello, and welcome to another episode of Awakened and Unfiltered. I am your host, Erica Barreto. In this space, we talk all things healing, living in alignment, anything to do with consciousness or spirituality. Okay, so today we're going to be diving into something I think so many of us face, but we rarely talk about openly, and what it's really like to navigate your spiritual awakening while doing the healing work and also trying to navigate your human self. If you've ever felt like you were falling apart while waking up, I promise you, you are not alone. Because a spiritual awakening, it doesn't happen just once, it happens in layers. It happens over and over again. The difference is when you first have your initial awakening versus the layers and the different types of awakenings that you have throughout your life, you have better tools. You're actually better equipped because you start to understand how to shine that light on that shadow, and the healing work, it gets a little bit easier, but it's never really truly easy because we all go through it every single time. And it's never easy when we have to look at our shadows. So if you've ever felt like you were falling apart while waking up, you're not alone. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. So, a lot of the times, a spiritual awakening, people will fall under this category of it being all love and light. And that's completely opposite of actually what it is, because it's often about our shadows. It's about the tears, and it's about breaking down every single thing that you thought you knew. It is about deprogramming everything that you've ever known in your life. When your soul begins to wake up, it shines a light on every single wound, every single belief, and every single part of you that you have buried. And at that very same time, you're also trying to heal those very parts of you while trying to connect to something bigger out there, trying to understand what the afterlife is, trying to understand what consciousness is. You're really trying to unpack a lot. And all of it leads to that deep introspection. But I want to say this first. You're not doing it wrong if it feels messy. And I think a lot of times people will beat themselves up over that. And a spiritual awakening and looking at your shadows is never about looking at those shadows with judgment. It's really to look at them with curiosity. It's looking at them in layers and trying to understand the why rather than beat yourself up and have shame because of the different situations that you might have been through. It's not an easy thing. Awakening isn't about perfection, it's about presence. It's about being in the here and the now. That's why I think with my path, I started off with gratitude, because gratitude was something that kept me grounded. It kept me in a place of really focusing on the presence and all the things around me and what I truly am grateful for. So that's like my going back to basics. Anytime I feel myself kind of lost and not understanding what I'm doing or what's going to happen next, I go back to gratitude. Healing and awakening are not two separate paths. That's another thing. They're not separate. They weave together to bring you back to your truth. And I remember on my own spiritual awakening, right when those doors were opening up, it happened in layers and layers. And the first time when I started to really try to understand the deeper meaning of life and what else there was out there, I went down the path of religion. I actually went back to do my confirmation and my communion at the age of 26. I did it. And I was very proud of it. I was very proud of being a part of the church, doing Bible study every Thursday night, and being able to complete those sacraments, because it was something that I've always wanted to do when I was a kid, and saw all my friends doing it. And I was just like, oh, I wish I could do that, but at that time, my mom couldn't afford to put us in the Sunday school. And, it was just one of those things that I wish I would have done. So I did it when I was older, and I don't regret it at all. I think a lot of the times people on this spiritual journey, they will go through the deprogramming of religion and church and just having a bigger meaning, which I still believe in a lot of that, but I just don't believe it in the way I want to say that they have forced us to believe. I believe the Bible is stories, philosophies, and there's deeper meaning to what it is that we're reading. And that's just my experience. That's not something I'm there to force on you, but I'm just trying to express what I had to go through to understand myself, to get myself to the place that I'm at right now. And eventually, I didn't feel like I could connect with that. It just didn't sit right with me. The whole idea of heaven, hell, and purgatory, like it just made no sense to me. It didn't, because I had so many different experiences in my life that nobody could ever explain to me. And a lot of those experiences were seeing spirits. I would hear them. I had imaginary friends. I mean, I would dream things and they would happen. So a lot of those things, I didn't understand it. I know that a lot of my family was very witchy. My grandmother, especially, she's a medium and a palm reader. She was a great psychic. And a lot of people would go to her for information that they needed regarding to their relationship, their finances, whatever that was. So we all knew it was kind of in our family, but never in a million years did I ever think that I was going to be on the path of spirituality, becoming a psychic medium myself, and also teaching this to others. But what I've learned over the years is that it is my path. And it's not an easy one, okay? Because as a psychic medium and also somebody who teaches this, it is a great responsibility to represent the spirit world in a way of respect and love, and just being able to teach people in a way of a non-fear based way, right? I like to keep my things grounded, and I think I owe that to my Taurus moon. I am a very grounded individual when it comes to trying to understand spirituality. I like to look at it in layers to get to understand it a little bit more. And that being a part of my path and just opening up to different things, I am open to any and all things. I believe in everything, okay? Even though I am a skeptic in some ways, I will need to see and get my own understanding in order for me to break out of it. We need our proof. And I think that's what happens to a lot of us when we are on this spiritual awakening journey. We tend to not understand exactly what is happening. We also start to feel like we're crazy, especially if you're hearing things, you're feeling things, you're having dreams of people passing and then they pass away. You're having dreams of world events and then they occur. And that's exactly what was happening to me. Now, it would happen sporadically throughout my life. And of course, there was a period of my life that I felt like, whatever, I was just doing my human stuff. And I didn't really focus too much on my spirituality. I was just more focused on being a mom, a wife, and somebody who would go to work every day. And then eventually, like I said, it happens in layers. So it came to a point where I couldn't ignore it anymore. And that point for me was after I had my second child. And I absolutely feel like my children were brought here to help me open up to those layers of myself and really step into my truth and my passions. But that initial, I want to say, brick to the face of being open and awakened to the point where I could not ignore it no more was not nice. It was not fun. Okay. It wasn't fun at all. When I tell you I had the deepest depression of my life. I was going through so much trauma from my childhood that was coming up from neglect and abandonment and not feeling worthy. I mean, you name it, I was going through it. Feelings of lack, every single feeling. I was thinking about things that happened to me when I was in the second grade. Things that happened to me when I was in the second grade. And at first I was like, okay, this is probably just anxiety. This is probably all that is. But then I started to hear things. And this is when I start to get like really concerned. I started to get really concerned because now I'm like, okay, I'm hearing things, I'm dreaming things. There's definitely something wrong. So what would somebody do? You would go seek out medical help, right? I did that. I seeked out the medical help that I needed. And according to the doctors, right, I was just having depression. I had postpartum depression. It was never really anything that was too serious until I found my amazing therapist. His name was Michael Garcia. Amazing, amazing therapist. He is no longer here with us in this human world, but he is here with me in spirit. And I'm constantly asking him for guidance. And I always get a little emotional when I mention him because he was a big part of my spiritual awakening. And he really, truly believed in me. And I honestly believe that that interaction with him was not a coincidence, the way that we were brought together. And I just want to tell you why I think that wasn't a coincidence, because a lot of my issues stemmed from my mom and dad not being together when I was a kid. That's where a lot of my abandonment came through, my neglect, my worthlessness feelings, right? All of that stemmed from that one event, and then just continued to grow throughout the years. And when I met him, first of all, his name is Michael. My dad's name's the same name. And then to make things even crazier, they shared the same exact birthday. So you can't make that up, right? And I thought about that for a minute and I said, you know what? This is absolutely not a coincidence. And he was a very big part of my inner child healing. And I thank him so much every single day for being a part of that, because he gave me the tools that I needed to navigate. So I am a very big advocate when it comes to mental health and seeking out therapy. There's absolutely nothing wrong with seeking out therapy if you have really been through some things in your life and you need that extra help. There's nothing wrong with it. Don't ever feel shamed about it, okay? Because I honestly needed it. I needed medications to help me get out of the funk. I am never going to be embarrassed about that, because that was a part of my awakening, a part of me having to get balanced back into myself for me to be able to dive deep and to do the inner work. And it was a part of my journey. And I never shame anybody about medications, about having to take them. And I think that's also a big topic when it comes to spiritual awakenings or just being on the spiritual path, and, wondering if could I take medications? Is it going to mess me up? Right? It's almost along the line of, should I be using fluoride toothpaste? I mean, come on. I don't believe in that stuff. And I'm going to tell you, I was drinking the Kool-Aid too at the beginning. I thought, oh, I can't take psych meds. I can't have toothpaste. I can't eat meat, right? I mean, it was crazy. And I think a lot of people go through that at the beginning of their spiritual awakenings, because you're being fed so much information, especially if you're looking on YouTube, if you're watching TikTok, if you're looking at any type of social media, you're going to hear all kinds of things. And my thing to you is to please have discernment with the things that you hear, what you feed yourself, the information that you give yourself at the beginning of your awakening. And I think we all go through certain things because it is a part of our path. Especially for me, I had to go through it all. And I feel like I've always been that type of person that needs to experience everything firsthand in order for me to be able to help others on their path based on those very same experiences. So I too drank that Kool-Aid at the beginning of my spiritual awakening. I was having horrible manic episodes where I just had so many like dissociative. It was a wild ride. Okay. I'm just going to say it was a wild, wild ride. And there's a very thin line when it comes to you going through your spiritual awakening and possibly losing your shit. Okay. Just going to put it out there. We all kind of go through it, and you'll hear about spiritual psychosis. And I don't really like using that terminology. I just like to really get to this point of just understanding that you can't dive down into this rabbit hole of conspiracies and all these things. You need to really sit with something that resonates with your soul, and you need to take it in increments. You cannot overload yourself with information. And I think that's where a lot of people tend to get lost in their spiritual awakenings, because they get so excited. They want to really understand things. They want to read all the books, listen to all the videos, but you have to take it in increments. You cannot overload yourself with information, because you will absolutely overwhelm yourself. Because remember, you're opening up to your spirituality, but at the same time, you're also dealing with your shadows. It is like a place where you need to balance, and grounding is absolutely necessary. It is absolutely necessary. Having a journal, because there's so much information that you might start to hear and channel, and things that just don't make sense at the moment. So, big advocate for journaling, putting down whatever information you're receiving, whether it be dreams, whether you're seeing things, hearing things. That's a part of the intuitive journey of really trying to understand your psychic abilities and really just diving deep into that area. So journaling is very important. But the one thing that I have learned, that an awakening doesn't bypass your humanity, right? It amplifies it. Spirit isn't asking you to escape this human experience. It's inviting you to heal through it. Okay? I'm going to say that again. Spirit is not asking you to escape your human experience. It is asking you to heal through it. So there is a balance. So, how do you do this balance? How do you get to this place of balance? How do you walk the line between awakening and healing yourself? So, here's a few things that really helped me, and it might help you. We're going to go back to that grounding because I was just talking about it, but grounding is absolutely so important because it's about you understanding that you are in your body. You are connected to earth, whether this is you sitting or just imagining roots growing through the bottom of your feet, placing your hand on your heart, and just remembering that you are in this body and you are here right now. So, that is something that you could do daily to anchor yourself down into your body, into this earth, into this human experience and presence. When you are in a place where you start to feel a lot of pain, a lot of things start coming up for you, and you start to feel overwhelmed, do not swallow it. Do not ignore it. You need to pay attention to your emotions. Let yourself feel. Healing is not linear, and your emotions are a part of your awakening. And it's going to constantly be a part of your awakening. It is just going to come in different ways. And you will see that as you start to progress on your journey, you really start to understand your spiritual awakening. And I also want to talk about how some people go through their spiritual awakening and they get scared. They get scared because things get really, really deep when it comes to you facing yourself. It is no easy task. And I think this is why a lot of people run back to a religion because it feels safe, because it's what they know. It's easier to do that than to face yourself, than to face your shadows, than to face your demons, than to face the things that you have felt shame, the things that you have dug down and buried so deep. It is easier to tuck that away and never look at it again and go back and run and do your things. And I'm not shaming religion because it's still something that I truly believe in. I believe in Archangel Michael. I believe in archangels. I believe in all those things, right? I'm never going to shame anybody for their beliefs. But a spiritual journey is about you understanding yourself. It is about you tapping into self and understanding what makes you who you are, but also understanding that you are a part of something bigger. Another part of trying to help yourself is integration. A thing that you could do here is journaling. Journaling your spiritual experience. Again, I'm always going to talk about journaling. I think I'm probably just going to bring this up every episode because it's all about you really just putting down the information and the experiences that you have so you can possibly catch up with yourself. I don't read my journal entries. Some may want to go back. I mean, it's completely up to you, but it's all about you practicing that presence so that you're able to get whatever's inside outside. You also have to learn how to give yourself grace, how to look at the things within without judgment. You are both a healer, and the one thing that is being healed is you. There's no perfect timeline, and there's absolutely no perfect way to do this. And I think that so many people think that there has to be this perfect checklist on how we do this, and that's just not how it is. The more you let go, the easier it gets for you to just allow yourself to be. One of the most important things on this spiritual journey is learning to let go of control. And that is one of the hardest things that we could ever do because that is how we grew up. We grew up in the social, it's the social norm of controlling certain aspects, of having those checklists and thinking that we need to know what happens next. That's why it's important to deprogram yourself, to really bring yourself to a place of just, I want to say, just trying to understand yourself, right? So I want you to ask yourself this right now. Where am I trying to spiritually awaken my way out of something I actually need to heal? And also, where am I staying stuck in the pain where my soul is ready to expand? These questions right here can help you shift everything, help you remember, help you really tap into those sides of yourself that are also sacred. Your healing is a part of your awakening, and your awakening is a part of your healing. So I want to thank you for spending time with me today on Awakened and Unfiltered. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you next time.